from the poplar trees.
Wind through the willow blows across your pillow.
Billie Holiday wanted to get clean, you know what I mean? And she made efforts and she made strides to get clean. But she had the entire government setting her up, trying to get her to kill herself.
And she was told that she had to take the freight elevator. As a black person, she couldn't ride in the regular elevator, presumably because it would upset the other guests in the hotel.
Billie Holiday was one of the greatest jazz singers of all time. But at one point in her life, nobody wanted to work with her. She had a powerful voice and deep emotions in her songs, but her personal life was full of trouble.
Friend Yolanda Bavan said to me, what's the cruelest thing you can do to a person? It's to take away the thing they love. She sinks back into addiction when she's in her early 40s. She collapses here in New York City. She's taken to hospital.
She faced racism, drug problems, and fights with the law. These struggles made people in the music industry turn away from her. What really happened? Let's find out.
I used to love to sing all the time. I like music. If there was a place where I could go and hear it, I went.
Billie Holiday was born into a tough life. Her real name was Eleanora Fagan, and she was born in Philadelphia. Her mother, Sadie, was just a teenager. Her father, Clarence Holiday, was a musician, but he left them when Billie was very young. She and her mother struggled with poverty. Her mother had to travel a lot for work, leaving Billie with relatives who did not always treat her well. When Billie was a child, she lived in Baltimore. Life was not easy.
She learned a lot of filthy language, and she would shout at somebody in the street, and chances are whoever it was would chase her down and punch her. But she'd do it anyway, because she didn't want to take any nonsense from anybody.
She dropped out of school early because she had to work. She cleaned floors and ran errands just to survive. She and her mother often had no money for food or a warm place to stay. Her father was never there to help. Billie once said that she and her mother were starving because her mother could not find work. Billie also tried cleaning houses, but she found it too difficult. At 10, she experienced the worst thing that can happen to a woman. When Billie Holiday was 10 years old, one of her neighbors turned up at her apartment and told her that her mother had sent him. According to the Toronto Star, the man was a 40-something-year-old named Wilbert Rich. He took Holiday to a house under the false premise that she would be waiting there, at her mother's request, until her mother came to pick her up. Her mother didn't come, and it grew dark outside, so the sleepy Holiday lay down on a bed at Rich's suggestion. As soon as she did, Rich pinned her down and raped her. A woman who had let them into the house tried to hold Holiday's head and arms down. Holiday put up a fight, screaming and clawing at her attackers, and before long, police officers, accompanied by Holiday's mother, broke the door down. In Lady Sings the Blues, Holiday wrote that after the attack, the cops at the precinct treated her like she'd killed somebody. They accused Holiday of seducing and coercing Rich, and as her mother cried and screamed and pleaded, the officers locked Holiday in a jail cell for 2 days. "It's the worst thing that can happen to a woman," Holiday wrote of the attack in her autobiography. And here it was happening to me when I was 10.
Woman was raped at 10, 11 years old. She was punished, sent to a reform school for being raped by 40-plus-year-old man. And
at just 14 years old, she had no choice but to take care of herself and her mother. They had no money, no food, and no warm place to stay. Her mother worked as a housemaid, but jobs were hard to find. Billie tried working as a cleaner, scrubbing floors, but she just couldn't do it. She had to find another way to survive. Desperate, she started singing in jazz clubs in Harlem, hoping to make some money.
She was a jazz singer. She had instant tonality. She had a fantastic ear.
She didn't have any training, but her voice was special. She didn't sing like anyone else, and people noticed. She sang in clubs and secret bars where people drank alcohol illegally. She worked for tips, making about $18 a week. It wasn't much, but it was enough to buy food. Billie later said that the first time she earned money from singing, she bought a sandwich. She and her mother ate that night, and after that, they never went hungry again.
They were not allowed to take the money in their hands. They had to take their tips through another part of their anatomy, an intimate part of their anatomy.
By the time she was 18, Billie Holiday had been discovered. Her unique voice and deep emotion made people want to listen. She quickly became part of the jazz world.
She also has that kind of thing they call charisma, I guess, that makes somebody think that they're singing only to you.
But it was not all good. The jazz scene was full of drugs and alcohol, and she got caught up in it. She also had to deal with racism. Even when she became famous, she was not treated the same as white musicians.
She played a gig in Detroit where the management demanded that she black up, put on dark makeup, because she was too light for the band. Everybody else in the band was darker.
When she toured with white band leader Artie Shaw, things were difficult. She was not allowed to use the same elevators as white people. She could not eat in the same places as the band. Sometimes she had to stay in a dark room until it was time for her to sing. Then she would perform for the same white people who didn't even want to ride in an elevator with her. It was painful, but she kept going because singing was what she loved.
You could not stay in a hotel. You'd stay with black families in that town. Couldn't eat where everybody else ate. You'd eat where the black folks ate or in the back of the restaurant, and could never go to the bathrooms that white people went to.
Billie's problems with the law made things even harder. She was arrested for drug possession and sent to prison. While she was locked up, she refused to sing. She went to church every Sunday and stayed out of trouble. Because of her good behavior, she was released early. Even though things were tough, she didn't give up. She planned a big comeback and performed at Carnegie Hall. The show was a huge success. People loved her, and she had to sing 6 extra songs because the audience kept asking for more.
What Billie put on records had a different sound than Bessie. Billie's blues were more modern.
However, the men in her life made things worse. She fell in love with John Levy, a nightclub owner, who promised to help her.
He was really a pimp and a hustler, is what we called him in those days.
But instead of supporting her, he treated her badly. He didn't pay her fairly for her shows and even hurt her. Before that, her first husband, Jimmy Monroe, had introduced her to heroin.
I can remember her saying to me, if Jimmy accuses me of having an affair with somebody, I'm going to do it.
She tried to stop using drugs, but it was not easy. She once said that nobody could ever say for sure that they were free from drugs until they were dead. Levy was not just abusive, he also betrayed her. He worked with the police and helped them set her up. He planted drugs on her, which led to another arrest. This could have ruined her career completely, but she was able to prove she was innocent. With the help of good friends and a smart lawyer, she fought back. After that, she started performing in nightclubs outside of New York, where she didn't need a cabaret card.
She sang Strange Fruit. It was so dramatic, you could hear a pin drop in that room.
Billie Holiday's song, Strange Fruit, was one of the most powerful and painful songs she ever sang.
Hanging from the poplar trees.
It was a song about the terrible lynching of black people in the South. The words described black bodies hanging from trees, blood on the leaves, and the cruel reality of racism.
Billie went up to Columbia's offices. They wouldn't let her record it because of the content of the song. It really was the very first important protest song.
The song was written by a Jewish man named Abel Mirapol, who was deeply disturbed by a photo of 2 black men who had been lynched. He turned his feelings into a poem and later put it to music.
With the anti-lynching motif, and they were afraid of their Southern dealers.
Well, that wasn't too political.
A nightclub owner introduced the song to Billie Holiday, and when she heard it, she was deeply moved. The song reminded her of her father, Clarence Holiday, who died because he was denied treatment at a hospital for being black. She felt the song in her heart and decided she had to sing it.
I'd never heard anything like it. I knew it was banned. I knew why it was banned. And without knowing her, she became an idol of mine.
When Holiday performed Strange Fruit for the first time in 1939, it shocked many people. The song was not like any other song at the time. It was not just entertainment. It was a protest. Many white people were uncomfortable with it. Some felt guilty, some felt angry, and some wanted to stop her from singing it. But black audiences and others who fought against racism saw it as a brave and necessary song. It gave a voice to the pain that so many people felt but could not express. Holiday knew that the song was dangerous to sing, but she sang it anyway because she believed in its message. She would close her eyes, stand completely still, and sing with deep emotion, making the audience feel every word.
For the crows to pluck.
One person who hated the song was Harry Anslinger, the head of the Federal Bureau of Narcotics.
I mean, this is a guy who was regarded as a crazy racist by the crazy racists in the 1930s. He used the N-word in official police reports so often that his senator said he should have to resign, and a really strong hatred of addicts.
Anslinger was a powerful man in the U.S. government, and he was known for being extremely racist. He did not like jazz music, and he especially did not like black musicians. He believed jazz was connected to drugs and that it was corrupting American society. When Billie Holiday sang Strange Fruit, he saw her as a threat.
I mean, this is a guy who was regarded as a crazy racist by the crazy racists in the 1930s. He used the N-word in official police reports so often that his senator said he should have to resign, and a really strong hatred of addicts.
He thought a black woman standing in front of white audiences and singing about racism was dangerous. He wanted to silence her, and he used his power to try to destroy her career and life. After Holiday's first performance of the song, she was warned to never sing it again. The government wanted to shut her up, but Holiday refused to stop. She believed she had the right to sing about what was happening to her people. This made Anslinger furious. He decided to ruin her life.
And that night, according to her biographer Julia Blackburn, she's told by the Federal Bureau of Narcotics, stop singing this song.
Anslinger's men followed her everywhere, looking for a chance to arrest her. In 1947, they finally did. She was caught with drugs and sent to prison for 1.5 years. When she got out, she was no longer allowed to perform in clubs that had liquor licenses. This made it much harder for her to earn a living. But she still found ways to sing. She kept performing Strange Fruit whenever she could. Even though it brought her pain, she knew it was important to keep the message alive. Every time she sang it, she felt the sadness of what had happened to black people in the South. She knew she could not stay silent, no matter how much trouble it brought her. Anslinger sent undercover agents after Holiday.
The first person he sends to stalk her is an agent called Jimmy Fletcher. Harry Anslinger hated employing African Americans, but you couldn't really send a white guy into Harlem to stalk Billie Holiday. It'd be kind of obvious.
Harry needed someone who could fit into Harlem, where she lived. So, he chose Jimmy Fletcher, a black agent. Fletcher believed that people who used drugs were hurting themselves, so he seemed like the right man for the job.
The first person he sends to stalk her is an agent called Jimmy Fletcher. Harry Anslinger hated employing African Americans, but you couldn't really send a white guy into Harlem to stalk Billie Holiday. It'd be kind of obvious.
Fletcher started spending time in Billie's neighborhood. He saw her drinking and using cocaine, but something unexpected happened. Billie noticed him, and instead of being afraid, she grew to like him. They got close, and some people even saw them dancing together at Club Ebony. Later, Fletcher admitted that he had many deep talks with Billie. He said she had a loving personality that made people care about her. Some even believed he fell in love with her.
So Jimmy Fletcher follows her around for 2 years, and she was so amazing he fell in love with her.
While Billie was dealing with the law, she also had problems at home. Her husband, Louis McKay, was abusive. She often showed up to her performances with bruises from his beatings. Eventually, she decided to leave him. McKay was so angry that he wanted revenge. He met with Anslinger and agreed to help set Billie up. Because of this, Billie was arrested and put on trial. The case was called the United States of America versus Billie Holiday. That's exactly how it felt to her. like the whole country was against her. She told the judge she just wanted help to recover, but they sent her to prison for a year. Billie served her sentence in West Virginia. There she had to give up drugs, but she also wasn't allowed to sing. When she got out in 1947, she lost her license to perform in cabarets, meaning she couldn't sing in nightclubs that served alcohol. But that didn't stop her. Soon after, she performed a sold-out show at Carnegie Hall, proving that people still loved her music. She sang there more than 22 times in her career. Even though Billie had been set up, she kept performing one of her most powerful songs, Strange Fruit. Anslinger wasn't done with her, though. He sent another agent, George White, to go after her. White was known for his undercover work and even spoke Mandarin to infiltrate Chinese drug gangs. In 1959, he arrested Billie again, claiming he found drugs in her hotel room in San Francisco. Many believe he planted the drugs. Billie, who had been clean for over a year, was broken by this betrayal. After this, Billie's life spiraled downward. She kept trying to stay clean, but addiction kept pulling her back. Her career suffered, and she struggled to find stability. Still, she never stopped singing. She continued performing throughout the 1950s and refused to stop singing Strange Fruit.
Her friend Yolanda Bavan said to me, what's the cruelest thing you can do to a person? It's to take away the thing they love. She sinks back into addiction when she's in her early 40s. She collapses here in New York City. She's taken to hospital.
In 1959, Holiday was very sick. She had liver disease, which made her weak and in pain. She was taken to the hospital, but her troubles didn't end there. Billie was addicted to heroin, and when she got to the hospital, they didn't give her any. When someone is addicted to drugs, suddenly stopping can be dangerous, especially if they are already sick. Her friend Maylie Dufty fought to get her methadone, a medicine that helps people get off heroin. When she finally got it, she started to get a little better, but that hope didn't last long. The police had been following Holiday for years because of her drug use. Even though she was lying in a hospital bed, sick and weak, his men came and arrested her. It was a cruel act that broke her spirit. People protested outside the hospital, holding signs that said, "Let Lady Day live." That was her nickname, and they wanted her to be left alone.
And she's convinced the narcotics agents aren't finished with her. And she was right. She says to one of her friends, they're going to kill me in there. Don't let them, they're going to kill me. She was right.
But the cruelty didn't stop there. After 10 days, the hospital stopped giving her methadone because of Anslinger's orders. Without the medicine, her body went into shock. She was already weak, and now she had to fight through painful withdrawal. Her friend, Alice Verbsky, said she could see that Billie wasn't going to make it. She was suffering, and no one was helping her.
She's handcuffed to the bed. They take away her record player and her candies. They don't let her friends in to see her.
On July 17th, 1959, Billie Holiday took her last breath. She was only 44 years old. She died from heart failure caused by liver disease. Even in her final moments, police officers stood outside her room. It was as if they couldn't wait for her to be gone. Anslinger had finally won. He had spent years trying to take Billie Holiday down, and now she was dead. But the reason he hated her wasn't just because of drugs. He was racist, and he wanted to silence her. He treated white celebrities differently, like Judy Garland, who also struggled with addiction. Instead of arresting her, he told her to take a break and rest. The double standard was clear.
It touches everybody who hears it, people who don't even know music, who say, oh, Billie Holiday. Yes.
Billie Holiday was just a teenager when she started singing in nightclubs in Harlem. She loved music and wanted to be a singer, so she performed wherever she could. She chose the name Billie from an actress she admired, Billie Dove, and Holiday from her father's performing name. At first, she spelled her last name as Halliday, but later changed it to Holiday. She performed in small clubs with a saxophone player named Kenneth Holland. They worked together for a few years, singing in places like the Grey Dawn, Pods, and Jerry's, and the Brooklyn Elks Club. People in the jazz scene started to notice her talent. One of them was Benny Goodman, a famous musician who heard her sing in 1931. As her reputation grew, she got the chance to perform in more clubs and meet other musicians. One of them was Charles Linton, a singer who later worked with Chick Webb. Around this time, Billie also reconnected with her father, who was playing in Fletcher Henderson's band.
She had enough courage to play with the music, and the beat is insistent. It says, follow me, hit me, be right on this beat.
When Billie was 17, she got a big break. She replaced another singer, Monette Moore, at a club called Coven's. A producer named John Hammond, who had come to hear Monette, heard Billie sing instead. He was amazed by her voice and style. He quickly set up a recording session for her in 1933, when she was just 18. She recorded 2 songs with Benny Goodman, Your Mother's Son-in-Law,
You don't have to have a hanker to be a broker or banker.
and Riffin' the Scotch.
The old one for the new one. Now the new one's breaking my heart. I jumped out of.
The second song became her first hit, selling 5,000 copies. Hammond was so impressed with Billie that he said she changed the way he thought about music. He compared her singing style to jazz legends like Louis Armstrong. He believed Billie had a special way of understanding lyrics and expressing emotions through her voice.
And when she said that Louis Armstrong was one of her idols, I can dig it,
In 1935, Billie got another big opportunity. John Hammond arranged for her to record with pianist Teddy Wilson. They were allowed to improvise, which meant they could change the songs to fit their style. One of their first songs, What a Little Moonlight Can Do, became a hit and helped Billie gain even more fame. The record company, Brunswick, originally didn't like her style and wanted her to sound like another singer, Cleo Brown. But after the success of her song, they realized Billie was special. She soon started recording under her own name. Her records were selling well, but the company paid her a flat fee instead of royalties, meaning she didn't earn money from each sale. Still, she continued making music and recording hit songs like I Cried for You, which sold 15,000 copies, a huge success at the time.
I used to be. Now I found 2 eyes.
Billie also worked closely with a saxophone player named Lester Young. They became very close friends, and he gave her the nickname Lady Day.
Lady Day was what Lester called Billie's mother. That was Lady Day, and Lady just took it.
She called him Prez. They understood each other musically and had a strong connection. Their performances together were special, and people could hear their chemistry in their recordings.
They were such close friends. They were soulmates. They weren't even lovers, according to their contemporaries.
In 1937, Billie joined Count Basie's band. She traveled with them, performing in different cities almost every night. She had a lot of freedom in choosing her songs and how she sang them. Some of the songs she performed during this time included I Must Have That Man and Summertime, which became a hit for her. Basie trusted Billie's musical instincts and let her perform the way she wanted. However, the tour life was tough. The band faced poor working conditions and long trips. By early 1938, Billie was no longer singing with Basie's band. Some people said she was unprofessional, while others believed she left because of low pay and bad conditions. Soon after, Billie joined Artie Shaw's band. This was a big deal because she was one of the first black women to sing with a white orchestra. At the time, segregation was common, and black musicians faced a lot of racism. Billie often experienced discrimination while touring with the band, especially in the South. There were times when she wasn't allowed to sit with the other musicians.
And she was told that she had to take the freight elevator. As a black person, she couldn't ride in the regular elevator, presumably because it would upset the other guests in the hotel. And she was so irked by this that she quit the band.
Shaw supported her and tried to stand up for her, but the racism she faced was overwhelming. One night in Louisville, Kentucky, A man in the audience called her a racial slur and demanded she sing a different song. Billie got so angry that she had to be taken off the stage.
When she was with Artie Shaw, who did a great thing, because Artie, they said to him, "You can't do that. You can't have a black singer." He said, "Yes, I can." And he took Lady, and then it got so bad when they would travel.
In 1938, Billie and Artie Shaw's band performed on the radio. Their music became so popular that they were given extra time slots to perform. The New York Amsterdam News wrote that Billie's performances were getting even better. The band's popularity grew, and their success put them at the top of the jazz world. However, Billie didn't always get the same opportunities as her white bandmates. The band had another female singer, Nita Bradley, who was white. Billie didn't get along with her, but had to share the stage with her. One of the worst experiences for Billie came when the band played at the Lincoln Hotel in New York. Hotel guests complained about having a black singer in the band, so Billie was forced to use the service elevator instead of the regular one. She wasn't allowed to sit in the dining room with the other musicians. This kind of racism was too much for her. Shortly after she left the band, there are no live recordings of her performing with Shaw's band, likely because of racism and her contract with a different record label. By the late 1930s, Billie Holiday had made a name for herself. She had sung with some of the biggest bands, recorded hit songs, and was becoming one of the most respected jazz singers in America. Songs like What a Little Moonlight Can Do,
What a little moonlight can do.
and Easy Living became
Living for you is easy living.
jazz classics. When Billie Holiday died, she had only about $1,000, which is worth more today, but still not a lot. Many of her best songs from the 1930s were not even being sold anymore. Even though Billie Holiday had a hard life, people now see her as one of the greatest singers ever. Her music still touches hearts today,